Anyway, people, it's like December 12th, 2017. I have to read this to you, the viewer. I just read it now. And it falls under the Medicare Protection Act, Chapter 286. It is called a Preamble. You ready? Maybe we can put it on here so you can see it. What do you think? Let's just read it together. And I'll upload this video. I gotta get it so I can see it. There we go. Let me just put it like this. Okay, I'll hold that while I read. Preamble. Whereas the people and government of British Columbia believe that Medicare is one of the defining features of Canadian nationhood and are committed to its preservation for future generations. Whereas the people and government of British Columbia wish to confirm and entrench universality, comprehensiveness, accessibility, portability, public administration, and sustainability as the guiding principle of the healthcare system of British Columbia and are committed to the preservation of these principles in perpetuity. In perpetuity. I'm tired, people. In perpetuity. That means to go on and on and on and on and on. Whereas the people and government of British Columbia are committed to building a public healthcare system that is founded on the values of individual choice, personal responsibility, innovation, transparency, and accountability. Whereas the people and government of British Columbia are committed to developing an efficient, effective, and integrated healthcare system aimed at promoting and improving the health of all citizens and providing high-quality patient care that is medically appropriate and that ensures reasonable access to medically necessary services consistent with the Canada Health Act. Whereas the people and government of British Columbia wish to ensure that all publicly funded healthcare services are responsive to patients' needs and designed to foster improvements in individual and public health outcomes and ongoing value for money for all taxpayers. Whereas the people and government of British Columbia recognize a responsibility for the judicious use of medical services in order to maintain a fiscally sustainable healthcare system for future generations. And whereas the people and government of British Columbia believe it to be fundamentally that an individual's access to necessary medical care be solely based on need and not on the individual's ability to pay. And now we're going to get into this. As I read that, and I just read that second time. I read it once to myself, and I read it to you, and all I can see is, I hate to say it, people, but a whole bunch of spin. I see Christy Clark up on her podium, blah, 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 blah. I see Gordon Campbell up on his podium, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, we know there's a bunch of holes in that, right? And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, anyway, okay, I'm no expert on this stuff, people. When I said, remember the BC Liberal government, I feel like this preamble was written by a speechwriter for the BC Liberal government, Christy Clark and Gordon Campbell. It probably was. Because here it says former act means the Medical Service Act. Okay? Oh, this camera's just getting worse. Alright, and then over here, purpose. The purpose of this act is to preserve a publicly managed and fiscally sustainable, keywords for the BC Liberal government, healthcare system for British Columbia in which access to necessary medical care is based on need and not on individuals' ability to pay. Now, we're under a two-tiered system here, people. They're writing it here like this to make it look like that they're not avoiding helping the indigent, the poor, the impoverished. They're trying to make it look like, you have to remember, this is under the BC Liberal government, okay? Because this is recent. So every time a new government comes in, what they do is they go into these acts, and these legislations and all this other stuff, and they start tweaking them, and they change them, and they repeal certain things, and they add certain things. So this is, I think, is what happened here, right? But this is just liberal spin, BC liberal spin, okay? Because we have a two-tiered system out here where, people with money can get those services for under that pay-as-you-go, but people with no money, they get the streets, and that's the bottom line, okay? They get minimal services, right? And here, in this case, they're trying to make it sound like this is written for people that don't have money, but in which access is necessary medical care. Let's read this again. The purpose of this act is to preserve a publicly managed and fiscally sustainable healthcare system for British Columbia in which access to necessary medical care is based on need and not on individuals' ability to pay. Uncle John could pay, so therefore he was targeted for his money. Right? It even says it right there in the preamble. Down in here. Recognizes a responsibility for the judicious use of medical services in order to maintain a fiscally sustainable healthcare system for future generations. Who are they fiscally sustaining it for? Uncle John? My daughter? I use my daughter as a comparison. They are not fiscally sustaining the healthcare system for my daughter. Because if they were, my daughter would be getting proper health care, and she's not. And whereas the people in the government of British Columbia believe it to be fundamental that an individual's access to necessary medical care be solely based on need and not on the individual's ability to pay. Okay? I know this is off track of what I'm doing here. I don't think this is what you put in front of an appeal board. But when it goes to trial, this is definitely a highlighted area because I don't know what it was, prior to the BC Liberal government getting into office, the healthcare system operated better, in my opinion. There wasn't so much competitive bullshit. Uncle John fell under this based on need and not on the individual's ability to pay. They were forcing services on him that he didn't need because he had the ability to pay. But when they got caught doing it, now they're saying, oh no, he didn't need our services. We released him because he was a functioning 30-year-old man that could walk out with a doctor's note as he was being treated like a child under a completely different act. We're going in circles again. Okay, people, as I'm reading, and of course I'm going to put this down because this is a hole, right? This is not a loophole, but this is a hole. This is Andre's little collector's car. He has a whole bunch of these things. He's running around packing up his little backpacks for when we go to the court library. He's got the big Spider-Man. Show them. Yeah. He's got the big Spider-Man. Where's that other little backpack that you have?
Oh, it's in my room.
We'll go get it and we'll show them. Let me read this. Okay, sustainability. We're still under the Medicare Protection Act. 5.7. The plan is administered in a manner that is sustainable over the long term, providing for the health needs of the residents, let me finish reading, of British Columbia and assuring that annual health expenditures are within taxpayers' ability to pay without compromising the ability of the government to meet the health needs and other needs of current and future generations. Now, the reason I'm reading this, people, is for the fact that when they released John and removed themselves to be responsible to him, what happened was he was transported. He didn't get on the ferry freely by himself. He was transported on a ferry and then immediately went to the Victoria General Hospital into the emergency department. This would have been either on February 20th of 2015 or in the event that he was transferred in a hammock while under the influence of an opiate to keep him passed out as he was being transported, which I'm starting to think may have happened, to keep him quiet on the ferry. They immediately took him to the Victoria General Hospital, which on that case would have been February 21st, because that was the day when I went to go see him. And that's when there was a whole bunch of people around his bed, and somebody was in a hammock, but I was too afraid to go look. I should have looked, people. I should have caught them right there, red-handed. But besides that point, so we'll just take it from February 21st of 2015. I'm talking, he ended up in the Victoria General Hospital into the emergency department, and he was housed there from February 20th at least until April 2nd of 2015 at the taxpayer's expense, because he was admitted under an emergency situation. The minute, 3.5 hours on a ferry ride that he was released from Fraser Health Authority. And Fraser Health Authority wants to sit up there and say, we're not interested in knowing what happened to him after we released him, because he was competent, even though the doctor had to sign the note because we were treating him as a child.
No,
we forgot. So this one here, you're going to pack up some special stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and why are we doing this? Why are we packing up these bags for when we go to the courthouse, to the library?
Because
What do you have to do?
I might have to.
You have to be quiet.
I know.
Right? When we go to the courthouse, to the library, you can't be running around in there. It's not a playground. Okay, tell your story. Hurry up.
Yeah, I made this. It's some kind of car I made.
Mm-hmm.
It's with this. It goes like this. Pew. How'd that break off?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the airplane. Rats, I broke pieces off.
Okay, come on.
Can't find it.
All right.
Oh, I found it.
Oh, you found it.
Put that right there.
Come on.
I said I'm going. Okay. I have a bomb.
A bomb?
Yeah.
Why?
Because to spot up the bad guys.
You're going after the Lego bad guys, eh? You're going after the bad guys, huh? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just going to end it on this note, people, because, again, here's this convoluted, twisted, torturous crap that's going on here. John, we'll say, disappeared on February 21st based on being released on his own accord. Although he went directly to the Victoria General Hospital under an emergency situation once he crossed over the water on a ferry. And he was there for, I don't got the exact number of days, but from February 21st to April 2nd, so for about 40 days he was there, because my kids went to go see him on April 2nd, right, for a half an hour before security was called on them, and they were told to get out and not to come see Uncle John anymore, because Uncle John wasn't allowed to see anybody because he was too sick, basically, and that it was a private matter, and that John knew that. So anyway, he was housed for about 40 days at the Victoria General Hospital. And Fraser Health, okay, in front of the judge, I'm going to end it on this note, people. When the judge asked the lawyer if Fraser Health knew what happened to John when John left the Yale Road Care Center The lawyer said, no, we don't know because he was released on his own accord. However, the social worker knew where John was. So therefore, Fraser Health Authority and their representative either lied or they misrepresented the facts. Because I'm not sure how this really works in terms of, does the lawyer have to get the information in terms of Uncle John's file in order to correct this misrepresentation or a direct lie? Because it was the social worker who spoke to the lawyer who told me about where Uncle John could maybe be found. He wasn't specific, but he said more than likely in a hospital, not sure if it was the Royal Jubilee or the Victoria General Hospital, but have somebody go see him before he disappears further into the system. That was the advice of the lawyer. And that's how my kids ended up at the Victoria General Hospital. And even then, when we phoned the Victoria General Hospital before crossing over to go see him, the Victoria General Hospital wasn't specific in terms of, yes, he was a patient. It was more like, no, we cannot give out that information. So this is a conflict of interest. So I'm going to end it on this note. So how do I write this all down? You can see what I'm doing here, people. Okay, so we're not doing this anymore. Those I'll just use as points. As you can see, I'm working on my graph here, right? You can see. I'm just focusing on law right now. You can see. So how do I write this down for an appeal judge? This remains to be seen yet.